This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle here for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. We welcome you all in tonight. All of you that are watching live tonight on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. The show will be broadcast again tomorrow at noon on Roku. We welcome all the Roku people who will see us then. Getting ready to welcome some of our regulars hopefully tonight. And we're going to talk about the world of college football. Lots going on. In a week where we see Tim Tebow and Reggie Bush and some others nominated for the College Football Hall of Fame. There's a little bit of news out of Notre Dame with them changing their fight song a little bit. Mac Brown brings Gene Chizik back into the college football ranks. And we'll talk about some other things as well. Maybe some of the quarterback situations around the league, kind of putting them into different tiers. We'll talk about some of the potential storylines that we'll see, early storylines. I'm going to go through some of them that SI had out here recently, SI.com. We'll talk about those and some other things. And whatever you guys want to bring up tonight, I hope you will do just that. It's the off season. We got to find things to talk about, but in the world of college football, it's not that hard. Also want to thank all the groups, obviously, of the college football and general sports groups, like the Sports Authorities, run by John Gonzalez. I'll throw that one name out there tonight. There are some others that we'll start giving a little plug to here and there as well, because I want to thank the groups. The groups have been essential in the growth of TGI Sports Talk and this show. And don't know what that was about. Sorry. And the Northeast Streaming Sports Network as well, which this is broadcast on as well. We're live on Northeast Streaming Sports at all times. Oh, guys, what do you want to talk about first tonight? Let's take a look at some of the news around college football before we jump into too much else. And again, I want you guys to share your thoughts and your topics tonight, and hopefully you can help carry this show along with me. So some of the news quickly around college football. I led off with this talking about, bear with me a second. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. Oh, so much to talk about. Hall of Fame nominees. Very interesting array of candidates. When you can run the spectrum from Tim Tebow to Ryan Leaf, you've pretty much got it covered when it comes to candidates, first-time candidates for the College Football Hall of Fame. Tim Tebow, Alex Smith, Ryan Leaf highlight the first-time candidates to this year's potential class for the College Football Hall of Fame. There's 80 players and 9 coaches from FBS and 96 players and 33 coaches from the divisional ranks that are nominated and candidates potentially for this year's ballot. And to tell you the truth, this is an interesting class, as we said, or potential class, I should say. We don't know that Tim Tebow should get in my mind. He led Florida to 2 national championships, obviously. Became the first sophomore to win the Heisman Trophy. 3-time SEC Player of the Year. This guy is a no-brainer College Football Hall of Famer. Your pro career shouldn't have nothing to do with this, and I'm sure that it does not. He was a great, great college football player. Urban Meyer, was his mentor and his coach there. And then I think Tim Tebow deserves to be nominated in his first time around. Now, the rest of this class, good evening, Ron Panetta. How you doing tonight? And yes, he's got to be in the Hall, right? You can't have a College Football Hall of Fame without having a kid who won the Heisman Trophy as a sophomore, won 2 national championships and 3 SEC Player of the Years, and not be in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot. Some of the other guys I don't know about necessarily. Alex Smith was a really good quarterback at Utah. He led the Utes to their first 12-0 season, and I believe they went to the Sugar Bowl that year. I won't swear to it. He was a number 1 selection in the NFL draft. And again, his NFL career will have nothing to do with this. And again, Ron Panetta, I believe you're talking about Mr. Tebow. I hope you're talking about Mr. Tebow. I'm not sure that Alex Smith is a shoo-in, but I think he is certainly warrants consideration. Now, whether he gets in on the first ballot is a little bit different. Rick Sherlock, good evening tonight to you, Mr. Sherlock. Tebow was a great college player. Yeah, no, I agree. When we're talking about the College Football Hall of Fame, his pro experience should have nothing to do with it. You know, if we were talking about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, he obviously would not even be under consideration. There are a lot of great college players who never even get drafted into college football or to the professional football ranks, right? But they need to be in the College Football Hall of Fame, or what's the sense of having it? Alex Smith, borderline. Ryan Leaf, you know, look at. He was the Pac-10 Offensive Player of the Year at Washington State in 1997. They won the league title for the first time in school history in their first Rose Bowl berth in 67 years in 1997. But other than that, I don't know that Ryan Leaf's, and again, that season propelled him to be the number 2 selection, I believe, in the draft behind Peyton Manning. If you remember, there was great debate in that draft, which one would go first, Peyton or Ryan, and certainly that decision changed NFL history, or could have changed NFL history a lot. The San Diego Chargers had ended up with Peyton Manning instead of Ryan Leaf. How different would history be for I don't know. We don't know both those guys. It's revisionist history, so who knows? Ron's talking about Tebow. Frank, good evening to Frank. I'm going to try to say your name, Frank, and Latazero. I'm sure I'm wrong, Frank, and I apologize, but my forte is mispronouncing names, so don't take any offense, please, and welcome to the show. Tebow, yeah, you know what? I don't know. That's a great, and we're going to talk about this at some point this summer while we're still waiting for games to happen. We're going to get into some of the great players in college football history and maybe break them down even by position. But, Frank, I'm not willing to sit here and say you're wrong that Tebow is one of the 10 greatest college football players ever. It's quite possibly he would have to be. And I'd have to think harder about that. So, Frank, if you want to spell your name out phonetically for me, I will do my best. I do try to learn. And Rick Sherlock says, that's my Perth education speaking up, as he would well know. So I do apologize, Frank. But again, to your point, I got to tell you, I don't think I can debate this right now. We're going to do some research, and we're going to have a conversation, and we'll probably dedicate a show to it. Maybe I'll even get the great Larry Sorensen on. By the way, Rick, you'll be happy to hear this, and some of our other regulars will. I hope to have Larry on next week. The Wake Forest baseball season ended. I'm off on a tangent here, but the Wake Forest baseball season ended. Unfortunately for them, Monday would have lost to Maryland in the regionals of the College World Series. And I talked to Larry via text here a couple times this week, and he's going to be coming on hopefully next week, and we'll do a little ACC and Wake Forest early preview. We'll get some of his thoughts on some of the spring news there and whatnot. So anyway, back to Tim Tebow. Great point, Frank. Who else we got here? So again, when you're looking at Tebow and Smith and and Ryan Leaf. This is a no-brainer. I don't know that Ryan Leaf is necessarily even college football Hall of Fame worthy. Now, there's some other notable first-time candidates. Justin Blackman, former Oklahoma State wide receiver. Oklahoma running back Rocky Kalmus. Penn State running back Kajana Carter, who's certainly a worthy candidate in my mind. Oregon running back LaMichael James. Boston College linebacker Luke. God, I always say this guy's name wrong too. Carolina linebacker Luke Kuechly. If I'm not mistaken, man, he had about 50 concussions, all on Monday Night Football. I'm not sure, but great linebacker out of Boston College. Oklahoma State defensive lineman Dewey Selman. Dewey Selman, I wish Alan were here tonight. He'd love this. Dewey Selman needs to be in the College Football Hall of Fame with his brother Leroy, in my mind. Dewey was a great college player. Didn't translate on the professional level quite to the level that his brother did, but that's not the point here. Dewey Selman was a great college football player, excuse me. Who else we got here? Memphis running back D'Angelo Williams. You have also some notable holdovers for this year's potential class would be USC running back Reggie Bush. And it'll be interesting to see if Reggie's candidacy is changed by the new NIL. I promise I wouldn't bring up NIL tonight, but I have to when we're talking about Reggie Bush, because he believes he should get his Heisman back. It may affect his candidacy in a positive way, even though this whole NIL thing is really blown up in the NCAA's face, just like I said it would. It's unfortunate, but it'll probably help his candidacy. Kentucky quarterback Tim Couch, who was part of the early air raid revolution in college football, coached by the great Hal Mumme out there in Kentucky. Florida State running back Warwick Dunn certainly deserves consideration for the College Football Hall of Fame. Had a tremendous career at Florida State. And his story's a great one, too. If you don't know Warwick Dunn's full story, please look it up. It should be a movie. Syracuse defensive end Dwight Freeney, and maybe I show little regional bias here. I'll get to your comment there in a second, Rick. I may be showing a little bit of regional bias here, but I think Dwight Freeney certainly belongs in the Hall of Fame. Great defensive end out of Syracuse. And it's interesting with this last name I'll bring up. I do support the U via marriage mostly, as we all know. But I am no fan of a man that I'm surprised is not yet in the College Football Hall of Fame. If he's not, it's possible he never will be. And that's one Ray Lewis. So I'm wondering if off the field things have not hindered his potential election into the College Football Hall of Fame. Rick's got Kajana Carter's autographed. Got Kajana to an A, at an A. Oh, I'm not sure where you got it. Got Carter's autograph at. I'm not sure where, but that's good. Rick, you got a pretty good collection of signed paraphernalia, as we've discussed previously on this show. So anyway, very interesting, I think. And again, we're not going to go through the full ballot, right? But those are some of the interesting names that stand out to me. And one thing to keep in mind, players are eligible if they're 10 full seasons removed from their final year of college football and have received first-team All-American honors by an organization recognized by the NCAA. Coaches are eligible 3 full seasons after retirement or immediately after retirement if they are at least 70 years old. I think they certainly try to keep these guys from coming back before they're elected, as has happened several times in different Hall of Fames. players or coaches, both, I guess, have come back to play after they've been elected, which I don't think is that big a deal. So that's one of the big pieces of news today, and we'll see how that plays out. Let's see. How many guys will they take? The ballot was emailed out Monday to more than 12,000 National Football Foundation members and current Hall of Famers who have through June 30th to vote. Those votes will then be tabulated and submitted, and the class will be selected. Does not really say, how many votes you need or how many they will elect. At an auction, Rick got Kajana Carter's autograph at an auction and was super excited, and then he got hurt and had no success in the pros. How many other guys' careers did you destroy, Rick Sherlock? Just kidding. Oh, gosh. It's all funny till somebody loses an eye after they sign Rick Sherlock's football. So I thought that was some interesting stuff there, and we can certainly circle back. There's other comments. If anybody's got other, again, we'll take a look at this further when the results are announced, and maybe we'll take a little look further at maybe some people that are not in that we think should be in on further shows. Ask Kenny. Kenny's not with us tonight, unfortunately. Not yet, anyway. He might be. I got a story I was going to tell, but I guess I won't right now. Maybe on a Sunday morning. I don't know. It doesn't seem to fit here right now. Let's see what else we got going on here. Another story that kind of piques my interest. Mac Brown hires Gene Chizik, former coach at first Iowa State, then Auburn. Had a very checkered career, if you will. I mean, he only won 5 games and lost 19 at Iowa State. And before that, he was an assistant to Mac Brown as defensive coordinator at Texas when Mac Brown had his great run at Texas and won his national championship there. But he only went 5-19 at Iowa State. When he got the job at Auburn, went 8-5 in his first year, went to a bowl game and won. He was 3-0 in bowl games with Auburn. And he won a national championship in his second year there, beating, I want to say, Oregon in the 2010 national championship game. It was a BCS championship game at that point. Followed that up with another 8-5. Excuse me. Another 8-5 season and went to the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Finished 4th in those 2 bookend seasons around that national championship in the Western Division of the Southeast Conference. And then he goes 3-9 just 2 years after winning a national championship, and he's out of there. Very little rope given to Gene Chizik at Auburn. So it's very interesting that, just 2 years after going 14-0, winning a national championship, the first undisputed national championship in school history for Auburn, by the way, he's let go and really kind of didn't know what he wanted to do in the years that followed. He did some TV. He was called. He did some. He dabbled in coaching here and there. In fact, he had gotten called by Larry Fedora, who was the coach at North Carolina, some years before. Certainly before Mac Brown was there. Became the defensive coordinator. Wasn't sure that he wanted to leave his family behind in Alabama because he had kids, and there were situations where they couldn't. If he was going to go to North Carolina, he had to go on his own. And he said he'd try it. And he realized, through that season that he couldn't stay. He had to give it up. So Gene Chizik is back. And the question will become, is Gene Chizik going to be the heir apparent to Mac Brown at North Carolina? He's got the background. He's got the credentials to become the head coach here. We'll find out. The Mad New Yorker's joined us. Carlos, how are you tonight? Good to see you. Good evening, Alan. I want to bring up something. Good evening, Alan, to you. And I do want to bring up. I don't think AP is in the Hall of Fame just yet. And Alan, I do want to bring up something to you. We were talking about the candidates for the College Football Hall of Fame, and Dewey Selman's name came up as a holdover who has not yet been elected. And I said, and again, I know you're a bit younger than me and Rick and some others, but Dewey and Leroy Selman led some great Oklahoma teams. He wasn't as good a player as his brother, even in college, but he was a really good college football player. And I do think he should be in the Hall of Fame with his brother. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I did give your team some props there. And hopefully, he gets a consideration that he probably deserves. Good. We can probably take a quick look here, Rick, and find out if AP is in the College Football Hall of Fame. I don't know. I'm trying to think when he graduated. He's got to fit the criteria, right? Oh, boy. I don't know. I got to get myself a producer to do this stuff for me, right? College Football Hall of Fame. Alan's already got the answer. Inducted in 2017, Rick. There you go. Alan, I beg to differ. Let me see. Bob Stoops was just put in last year. I've got him in by one of the most decorated players of. That's not what I want. I just got some results here that showed he was in. I got the wrong Adrian Peterson. That's too funny. I got a guy from. I got Adrian Peterson out of Georgia Southern in the College Football Hall of Fame. So that's very interesting. So to answer your question, there is an AP in the so he does fit the criteria. No, I think he is there, Alan. I think the guy I've got is the wrong Adrian Peterson. That's very interesting. We'll check. I do think there's got to be some Vikings in there, right? I mean, isn't Fran Tarkenton got to be in the College Football Hall of Fame? I'm not talking NIL tonight. I promised myself I wasn't going to do it, and that's a pretty cheap NIL deal for CJ Stroud, by the way. And it's funny. I said I wouldn't talk about this, but the Ohio State. I didn't bring this up last week because I was just so frustrated talking about this. $13 million, Ryan Day estimates Ohio State needs in NIL money to maintain the Ohio State football roster. He needs us to maintain his football roster beyond next season. What is this freaking whole mess coming to? I mean, I said I wasn't going to talk about it tonight. Sure. $13 million to maintain their roster. My God. It's funny. One of the questions in the mailbag this week was, I want to get back to my topic here, but one of the questions in the mailbag this week was about, it's kind of interesting after Mac McGrath's appearance last week and his radical plan to change the face of college football was about, are we on course for full on pay for play in college football? Let's not go there. Nobody wants that. Anyway, back to Gene Chizik. It's going to be very interesting. He's been hired. He's the assistant head coach. He's defensive coordinator for North Carolina, and North Carolina needs all the help they can get on defense. Again, hopefully we'll talk about this more with Larry Sorensen next week or maybe the week after. Larry didn't confirm. We went back and forth, and then when I mentioned last week, I didn't hear back from him again. So, but Larry's been very, very busy with baseball, and great season by Wake Forest, by the way. But we'll talk to him more about this North Carolina situation, how much trouble Mac Brown could be in, and might he even step aside on his own after the coming year, regardless of the results for North Carolina. He's done a good job of getting North Carolina back on the football map after some down years, but that defense has been atrocious. Gene Chizik now is there to kind of restore the luster of that defense and possibly be in line to be the next head coach. Carlos is pushing buttons that Billy used to. Carlos knows the things that trigger me, as well as Billy and the rest of you guys. You know, every sport's got like one little button for me. The NIL is it for me right now. And the transfer portal. The college football's got several things. You know? I mean, that was one of the questions in the mailbag today or this past week, right? And I don't have let me switch off this since you guys aren't that interested. Neither am I right now. And I'll go to some other news around college football. One of the other questions in the mailbag was about, since we're on this topic of NIL, you know, between the NIL and the transfer portal, you know, are the stronger academic schools going to be able to keep up? The schools like Stanford and Notre Dame and Vanderbilt, Northwestern, you know, are they gonna find it more difficult to find transfer players? You know, if they're going to keep and want to maintain their high academic standards? And I think it's already affecting those schools. I mean, the last time, you go back to the early 2010s, something like that. It was one of the rare times that Stanford and Vanderbilt and Northwestern and Notre Dame were all pretty good, all at the same time. Now, Notre Dame still gets a share of transfers. Pat Fitzgerald gets a few at Northwestern. But it gets harder and harder for these schools because they lose transfers just like everybody else. And it's hard for them to bring in the same quality that they lose because of the academic standards that they have. And it makes it very hard to kind of keep up. And like I said, there was this rare moment in the early 2010s where these teams, as I mentioned, the academic schools that we think about, again, I'm not telling you that these guys are all going to become rocket scientists, right? But the kids at Notre Dame, Stanford, Northwestern, Vanderbilt, and even Duke were all fairly good in the early 2010s. And it's probably never going to occur again, or it's going to be very infrequent just because, you know, the portal, the early signings, NIL money, you know, it puts these schools are at a disadvantage when it comes to that. So it's very interesting that topic came up tonight too. So that was one of the questions that we were going to talk about later. Yeah, a lot of players made big moves, but again, as I said, my point here, Carlos, was the teams that are at a disadvantage when it comes to the transfer portal, because when you lose players of a certain caliber, it's very hard to meet that same caliber of player yourself because of the standards. Back to the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry. Only Bulldog getting dollars is Stetson Bennett. That's fine. I find that hard to believe. Well, maybe the guys have graduated that were getting money, Rick. You guys got me on the NL trail again. NIL trail. NIL. Let's see what we can find. See if I can find anything. NIL program, University of Georgia Athletics. Yeah, this is just a general article. We'll look at this. This is like their buy. It's funny that I found their guidelines, which maybe they're one of the few teams following it, Rick. Yeah, I can't find anything myself right now. We'll talk about that. If you guys can find anything, we'll certainly talk about it. Allen gets Fran Tarkenton. There you go, Georgia alumni and Viking alumni. Rick was talking about inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame in 1987. Certainly a deserving player. Fran Tarkenton, one of the great quarterbacks of all time, and he gets lost in the conversation. Right? This isn't an NFL show by any means, but when you're talking about great quarterbacks, whether it's college or pros, Fran Tarkenton's a guy who gets lost in the conversation because of some of the guys that have followed him. And Fran Tarkenton held a lot of passing records when he retired that have been obliterated by some other guys. Well, you don't. Depth matters, Carlos. This isn't pickleball they're playing out there where you can just play the same two guys for 100 games in a row or 50. You need some depth. You need depth on both sides of the line. You need depth of the line. Look at the injuries that Alabama's had to overcome the last 2 years. You don't think depth's important in college football? These all-star players move to get play time. Yeah, no, they moved, and they're also moving to get dollars. Let's not kid ourselves, Carlos. Let's not kid ourselves. I already told you that the cautionary tale of the kid from Miami, the basketball player, who got plenty of playing time, but with not enough money. So he told the school if they didn't pony up, he was going to be hitting the transfer portal. You're like a QB3. I don't know what we're talking about there, but anyway, let's get off the NIL. Ugh. Every week. That's all I get to talk about. And it's not going to go away until the NCAA hires a real commissioner, a football commissioner, which is what the NCAA ought to do, by the way. We talk about their need to replace Mike Emmert who's a useless, in my mind. I went on and on about him in a couple of shows already earlier this year, and they need to replace him with a strong hand. But you know what they need? They need a football commissioner. They need a basketball commissioner. They need commissioners for the different sports. Somebody who can be a strong leader and save these schools from themselves. Because right now, when it comes to pay for play, NIL, transfer portals, antitrust nonsense, the NCAA is sitting there waiting for the Congress to save them from themselves. Allen hates to bring it back, but that's why Texas has their NIL program focused on offensive line. But exactly, it's a great point. I mean, I don't mind going back here, Allen. It's not that I don't want to talk about the NIL because it's impossible not to. But again, depth is important. You don't think losing depth is important? How about depth at quarterback? What if Georgia had lost Stetson Bennett in the draft portal before last year? He didn't start the season. They had their starting quarterback in Daniels, who fell by the wayside. And how's history play out? And there could be dozens of quarterbacks maybe that would have won with this Georgia team. It was a great team. But we don't know that. Well, there have been QB3s who have had to step up and play. It's not like it's never happened. Oh, well, that I get. But if you're a QB3, you're probably not going to get a start. At least not in a division, a power conference. You're not going to get a starting job probably anyway. hire a commissioner and have an unbiased sports experts be the ones who rank the teams instead of the school's ADs. Well, I don't have a problem with that. And again, I think the NCAA, once they hire a new president, they really should look at commissioners for each sport and maybe a panel. They don't want to go too deep, but somebody's got to rein these schools in. And that's why Georgia won. And you know what? And deep, too. And that's also another reason, another thing about the depth of these schools and why it matters is that's why they're going to they're reloading this year. I mean, they're certainly not, an odds-on favorite to go to another national championship game or even a playoff necessarily. But Georgia's certainly going to compete and still be a top 20 program and probably compete to be a top 10 program and maybe even compete for a playoff. We don't know. But they won't fall, they won't have to totally rebuild their program after losing. I mean, how many guys went into the NFL draft? A record number. But they've got depth. The Georgias, the Alabamas. Those kids don't all move to play. They wait their turn. I'm not sure if you're talking about Stetson Bennett or who, but he won a national championship last year, if that's what you're talking about. So I think he was an okay. Okay. Again, I don't know what we're talking. I don't know what we're arguing about. I really don't know. I've kind of lost track of where the conversation's going. I'm having a little trouble with my banner thing here. So does anyone believe the hype for USC? It's very interesting. Let's go down that road right now because let me change my beta real quick. One of the things I wanted to chat about tonight, I found some early predictions and storylines for the NCAA season coming up. And I want to go through these and we'll talk about them with you guys. And one of them happens to be this question that you just brought up, Balland. Let me see if I can find it here. Damn it. What'd I do with it? Crap, I lost it. All right, maybe I got it up here. Here we go. All right. One of them, and I'll skip to the one that Alan just wanted to talk about. USC wins the Pac-12. This is SI.com, I believe. Oh, no, this is Fan Nation. Happened to come across this article the other day. I think it's from even a month or two ago. And they talk about if any team can win an offseason, USC did it in a rout. Lincoln Riley, the offensive mastermind and the quarterback builder. When did Lincoln Riley invent football, college football? Did I miss something? Did I miss the national championships that he won at Oklahoma? He's a good coach. He certainly had some good quarterbacks come out of Oklahoma. Most of who didn't start there, by the way. And he did very, very well in the transfer portal, getting Caleb Williams, and now he's got the Jordan Addison, the former Pitt wideout, the standout wideout, coming out there to play. But this Pac-12 is not there just for for USC to take by storm. Utah's still pretty good. Oregon's going to reload. And USC had bigger problems than quarterback and wide receiver last year. So I'm not buying into the hype. I'm not saying that they won't win the Pac-12. I'm not saying they won't have a great season. I'm just saying I got to see something before I make that assumption right there. Because again, Lincoln Riley did invent college football. I think Bob Stoops said that too, or at least he alluded to it when they were talking. The Oklahoma fan base was, around the time Venable was hired and Riley had gone, and Bob Stoops says, "Relax." Oklahoma football was really good long before Lincoln Riley was here. It'll be very good after he's gone. So that, to your point, I'm having a lot of trouble getting the banners up. I don't know why. Cincinnati had equal skill player. Exactly. We're back to the lines. I get it. Yes. They were overwhelmed on the lines. I mean, they look like men against boys, and depth matters there too, right? Because you can't just fire a bunch of guys out. I'm not sure where you're at there. Sounds like Shanahan, maybe, but that's a different show since Shanahan doesn't coach in college. Thank Colin Cowherd and other reporters from hyping that up. There's, look, the media's got to sell papers, and guys like me who want people to view, and they want clickbait, and they're gonna put out all kinds of crazy nonsense. Do I think Lincoln Riley will have success at USC? Yeah, I do. But he doesn't walk in there the best coach in USC history. Let's remember, USC's had some great coaches. John McKay comes to mind. John Robinson comes to mind. Pete Carroll comes to mind. So he starts in 4th place, just an FYI. So that's one of the, look what he did at Oklahoma last year. The offense fizzled in most games. Yeah, well, that's a good point. Offensive mastermind is what this article says, Alan. Offensive mastermind. I mean, I don't know. What else they say here? Looking at their early schedule, it's a safe bet the team won't play a ranked opponent until a mid-season road trip to Utah. Well, the schedule, again, we don't know beforehand how good or bad a schedule is. We've seen this 100 times. Cincinnati's schedule last year looked really, really good with Indiana on it. And, Notre Dame still turned out to be a good win. But there was a couple other teams. Indiana was projected to be a really good team based on the years before's performances. And last year they were terrible. So now it turns out not to be a good win. So we don't know until we play the games how good or bad a schedule is, right? So let's see what else they got. In the second half, they've only got 2. I don't know. Again, I'm not going to say that they're going to win games against anybody. They got Notre Dame and they've got UCLA on the schedule, obviously. This team is not necessarily, a shoo-in. The defense was one of the worst in football a year ago. 89th nationally. So, their new coordinator, Alex Grinch, has his work cut out for him as well. Especially when they may be on the field a lot. With that, if that offense is high-powered and fast-paced, like Oklahoma has seen before, and we can see where these fast-paced offenses hurt the defenses, right? I mean, that's why you see these 45 to 40 games, 50 to 48 games, because the defenses, even on the really good teams, the defenses struggle, except unless you're an exception like Georgia was last year. But, Georgia also didn't play this fast-paced offensive football. They could strike from anywhere in the field, but they were not that type of team. And when you get into these run-and-shoot type offenses, right, and they're not on the field for that long, your defense gets worn out by the fourth quarter, which, again, is why depth matters, right? So these things all matter. Not every program was rebuilt in a day. Dave Aranda took a couple years to rebuild Baylor. I think it was only a year or 2 years. His first year was down after. And by the way, that program was pretty good before he got there. It had a very short down period before he brought them back. So. Even Nick Saban, that's a great point. Even Nick Saban took a couple of years for Nick Saban to get Alabama back to a year in and year out contender. Nick Saban wasn't the greatest college football coach of all time when he took the Alabama job, which he is now. I know you don't want to hear that, Rick, but he is. And he did bring the same defensive coordinator that struggled with Norman last year. And again, let's remember something. Like I just said, though, even good defenses are going to struggle some with that type of offense. And I think that was a lot of Oklahoma's defensive struggles the last couple of years. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that. I should say that. He tried to have a fast-paced offense all the time. So you're either scoring quick or you're 3 and out quick. So the defense doesn't have a lot of time to recoup. And if you're going to run that type of offense, then you better have a really deep defense so that you can give a guy a blow here and there. Yeah. And that's probably for the best, though, in my mind, Alan. You're better off with Max Venable coming in there, building his own staff from the ground up. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting in a league that's very offensive minded, or has been in the past. It's starting to take a little bit of a turn, and we see these types of cycles, right? The Big 12 for a lot of years, was a very offensive minded conference, and it still is in some regard. But now you've got schools like Oklahoma State, who under Mike Gundy for the first 10 years he was there, or close to it, though they were offensive minded and looking to score 50 points a game. Then when the offense was a little bit, lagging behind, it's been the defenses that have really kept Oklahoma State one of the best programs in the country, by the way, right now. Same with Baylor. Aranda really built this around the defense. So the Big 12 is taking a little bit of a turn, away from the offensive prowess to more of a defensive focus. These things happen in cycles all the time. What other questions we have here? Let's take a look at some of these other. I got it over here. I forgot. So this is another prediction. Clemson misses the playoff again. I'm say this is a pretty safe bet. I think Clemson's going to have trouble getting out. I think Clemson's going to be okay, but the ACC is going to be better. I know, Carlos. You're going to tell me the ACC is trash, whatever. But you're going to see Miami making a huge improvement in the first year under Marco Cristobal. And they've got a Heisman candidate at quarterback this year in Van Dyke. So the Tigers could be better. Clemson Tigers could be better and still struggle to win the ACC because the ACC is going to be better. Wake Forest plays any kind of defense. They're still going to be tough and give Clemson another run for their money in the Atlantic Division. And we'll talk more about this at length, hopefully next week, as I said, with Larry Sorensen. North Carolina State, we'll see if they can continue their rise. And Mike Norvell has got to have a good year at Florida State or he's on his way out. So the pressure is on there. Same with Dino Babers, but I don't see either one of those teams competing for the top of this division. And then when you get to the conference championship game, you're looking at a much better Miami team, I think, coming out of that Coastal Division. Maybe North Carolina rebounds. Pittsburgh should be a little bit down. So this conference, this side of the conference is set up perfectly for Miami. And Miami, I think, will get better and better as the year goes on this year, unlike some other years where they started out really well, especially under Mark Richt, and really faded at the end. And I guess they did the same under Mario Cristobal, Manny Diaz as well. We got a few other comments here. Tricky Nicky left the Dolphins in the middle of the night. He didn't leave in the middle of the night. I mean, he did say over and over again he wasn't interested in the Alabama job. But look, it's not like Nick Saban's the only football coach who's ever misled the press about being interested in a job. Every one of them does it. And Nick Saban knew he wasn't cut out for the NFL. I have a hard time, especially you look at what's going on today. Let's not, I'm not saying Nick Saban walks on water here, but or he has no sins. But let's not get on him for leaving the Dolphins to go to the best college job in the country. I know that hurts to hear, Rick, but Georgia's a great school. It's got a ways to go to meet Alabama's history, is all I'm saying. And look at what these coaches do now. Contrast mean nothing. So I'm not going to get on for that. Baylor is a solid defense, and they're, Kansas, I don't know. If you mean Kansas State, I think Kansas State could be a dark horse in that Big 12 this year. Not Kansas, though, I don't think. I can't see that big move. I can see Kansas State making a move this year, Alan, but I don't know about Kansas. If you forgot the state, then. Yeah, he went to the Miami after LSU, where he won a national championship, by the way. Where's John DeLon tonight? And then went to Bama after he left Miami, yeah. I think he was poking. I think Alan Rick was taking a little shot at Mr. Saban. Because I don't think he likes me calling him the best college football coach of all time. Florida State gave Notre Dame a good game last year. Florida State played better in the second half last year. What did they finish at for the year? 5-7, 4-4 in the conference. Played better the second half of the year. And you know what? There's a sense of desperation there, and I think Mike Norvell's coaching for his job this year, so they could get better. But that's going to be the tougher side of this conference. That's going to be the tougher division with Clemson. So I think Clemson not getting back to a playoff is not out of the realm of possibility. Like Lincoln Riley saying, I don't want to go to LSU and then leaves to go to USC. Yeah, well, again, these guys all double talk, and it's coach speak, media speak, whatever you want to call it. You can't. I wouldn't trust anything any of them had to say. I really wish John DeLon was with us tonight, because the next prediction that Fan Nation has is that LSU in Brian Kelly's first year will not reach 500. Now, Kelly's had a pretty good offseason in the transfer portal and on the recruiting trail. He did land a 5-star linebacker in Harold Perkins. He did get Jaden Daniels to transfer in from Arizona State. He did lose his best cornerback, though, to Alabama in Eli Ricks. But I don't know if they can put this together right away. This, since winning the college football championship in 2019, LSU's fallen in deep into mediocrity. And they desperately try, and in desperation to try to fix that malaise, they throw $95 million at Coach Kelly to make it right. Something to remember about Brian Kelly. Great coach, I think. 14-14 in his career against top 25 teams. And there's a bunch of top 25 teams last time I looked in the SEC. Carlos will make this point all the time, how tough it is to play in the SEC. I'm just not sure that this team is going to compete, at least in year one, with the rest of this SEC. It's going to be very, very difficult. In fact, why don't we take a quick look to try to, again, I'm going to agree with this comment. They were 6-7 last year, 3-5 in the conference. Let's go through their schedule. Game one at at home against Florida State. I guess I'll give that a win. They're going to beat Southern. So they're 2-0. I'm going to have them losing to Mike Leach in Mississippi State. That's 2-1. They'll beat New Mexico, 3-1. I'm going to have them lose at Auburn, 3-2. Lose to Tennessee, 3-3. Lose at Florida, 3-4. Lose to Mississippi, 3-5. Lose to Alabama, 3-6. Beat Arkansas, beat UAB, and lose to Texas A&M, which I think leaves them like I lost track here, like 4-5. Can't be right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. How many wins did I have him getting? Damn it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wins. 6-6. Best case scenario for LSU, in my mind. What do you got for me here? We don't have the SEC elitists. Where'd Carlos, my SEC elitist, go? When all but one SEC school doesn't make a bowl last year, it's hard to see that unless they take a huge nosedive. I agree. It's going to be very tough. Brian Kelly's got a tough job ahead of him. LSU's expectations, in my mind, are their fan base is out of proportion, thinking this team should be competing for national championships year in and year out. Are they going to have teams that are good? Should they have teams that are good consistently? Yes. Should they have teams that compete for a national championship, every couple cycles? Sure. But this isn't Alabama. This isn't even Georgia. South Carolina. Let's take a look at their schedule. We'll get to your comment here in a second, Carlos. Bear with me. Ken Shane Beamer and his new quarterback, if he wins the job, Spencer Rattler. What are you saying here? 7 or 8 wins. Georgia State, win. Arkansas, at Arkansas. I call that a loss, 1-1. Georgia, 1-2. I don't even know who this team is, so I'm going to say that's a win. 2-2. South Carolina State, 3-2. Kentucky, a really good school. That's a loss, 2-3. Texas A&M, I think that's a loss, 2-4. Mizzou, they win, 3-4. Vanderbilt, 4-4. They're at Florida. I got to call that a loss, 4-5. Tennessee and Clemson. Man, I've had a hard time seeing this team go 6-6, to be honest with you, Alan. But, strange things have happened. I knew you'd agree Utah would, or Tennessee would win that LSU game. I also got them beating their rivals at South Carolina as well. So, anyway, that's topic number 3. Let's move on to number 4. Auburn fires Brian Harsin. I disagree with this one. Excuse me. Brian Harsin came under fire this year. Doesn't have a lot of support necessarily within the program right now, but that's because he doesn't win. They elected to keep him after an investigation into his coaching methods, because we can't yell at kids. And again, I know somebody's going to tell me the kids, they're going to stick up for the kids. It's not easy to win in the SEC. I get that. But I think Brian Harsin and Auburn, maybe, let's take a look at their schedule, shall we? And maybe I will recant this. This Auburn team that went 3-5 in conference, 6-7 overall. They're going to win their opener against nobody. They're going to beat San Jose State. That's 2-0. I think they'll beat Penn State. I'm not a big James Franklin fan. They're going to go to Penn State this time and win the game, 3-0. They're going to beat Missouri, 4-0. They're going to beat LSU, 5-0. They'll probably lose to Georgia at Georgia. That's 5-1. Lose at Mississippi, 5-2. Win against Arkansas at home, 6-2. I think they go to Mississippi State and win. That's 7-2. Lose to Texas A&M, 7-3. Beat Western Kentucky, 8-3. I think they go 8-4 this year with a loss in their last game to Alabama. I think Brian Harsin saves his job. If they play like last year, they will. They just couldn't finish games. I think we're talking about You're still. I think Alan might still be on. Here's another interesting, and you guys can comment on any of these anytime you want, and I'll go backwards if I have to. Prediction number 5. Texas A&M beats Alabama again. This game is going to be hyped up so big because of the Nick Saban, Jimbo Fisher feud, which Nick Saban says is over. And Jimbo says, what? Because Nick Saban said he never accused anybody of doing anything. Well, watch the video, Nick. I mean, you said point blank, they bought all their players. And they don't buy any. Again, I'd have to look up the NIL deals for Alabama to know if that's true or not. I haven't done that. I just know it's a fun blood feud, and I hope it continues. This game's going to be built up tremendously. Texas A&M beat Alabama last year with their backup quarterback. You know, the stuff between the coaches, I don't think will matter come game day. This will come down to who has the best players, and I think Alabama's going to have the best quarterback on the field. I know that, and I think Alabama's going to win this game. I don't agree with this prediction, so that's a prediction I cannot get behind. What say you guys? Oh, Auburn last year, yes. You're right. They couldn't finish games, Auburn, last year. They had a lot of trouble, especially the second half of the season. And early in the season, they should have beat Penn State last year. Well, James Franklin, to go to your question here, does Franklin stay at PSU? I mean, he signed an extension, right? I think. But that means nothing. What amazes me is that James Franklin's name keeps coming up for every big job that opens up. He's done a decent job at Penn State, but he also hasn't got to a Big Ten championship game, much less a playoff. I've just never been a big James Franklin fan, and whenever there's a job open like USC, his name will come up, or LSU. So I don't know. Not a big fan. You feel they lose Franklin halfway? Again, who's going to look at it? Unless they step it up and get to a Big Ten championship game and sniff a playoff appearance, James Franklin may not make it through his contract anyway. Jimbo will need to have a successful season with all the additions and the dollars spent. Look at Jimbo. I've said this a lot of times. And Jimbo Fisher is not a bad football coach. Jimbo Fisher won a national championship with Florida State, and they went into crapper immediately upon his leaving. Now, Jimbo Fisher, year in and year out, has all these, ballyhooed recruiting classes, but it doesn't turn into SEC championship game appearances, which is, again, what it's all about. Jimbo Fisher is one of the highest paid coaches in the country. He's fallen down the list with some of the new deals that have been signed in the last year. But when he signed his extension, he was like the second highest paid coach in the country behind his good friend, Coach Saban. So Jimbo does need to win not just some games, but some important games. He beat Alabama last year. God bless him with his backup quarterback. Let's take a look. Shall we take a look at Let's take a look. We got time here. We've done this for a few schools now. Let's take a look at their record or their schedule and what should be their record. 4-4 last year, 8-4 overall. Remember, they play in a division with Alabama, Ole Miss, an improved Arkansas team, an improved Mississippi State team. Again, they got Stony Hill or something, State University to open the season, so they win that. They got Appalachian State, they win that. That's 2-0. They got Miami at home. I'm going to predict the Miami victory here. I know that doesn't surprise you guys, and that's pretty much a heart bet, not a head bet. But I'm going to say Miami goes in there and wins that game. That's 2-1. They beat Arkansas 3-1. They're going to go to Mississippi State. I'm going to give them 4-1 there. They're going to Alabama. I don't think they beat Alabama at Alabama. 4-2. South Carolina 5-2. Ole Miss on the road 5-3. It's a loss. Florida at home, I'll give them a win, 6-3. Auburn, I said they'd lose that game, 6-4. Then they got UMass, so they got a week off there. SEC schools. 8-4. I got them 9-4. That's probably too many games. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I guess I got them 8-4. Or is it 8-3? Hold on. How many losses do I have them get? 1, 2, 3. I got them 8-4. 8-4. So I don't know. Jimbo, I don't know if that gets it done for Jimbo. With this ballyhooed recruiting class? No. It all depends on the lines, Rick. If they're getting 20 on the road, I'm taking them, which they're not going to get. I rarely, just so you know, as far as my wagering, I got a few rules. I rarely bet on my teams. I never bet against them, of course. I rarely bet them when there's a chance they will win and not cover. They're getting points. I'll wager on them. But I try to stay away from those games altogether. That way I can enjoy the game and not worry about, where the money's going. What else did we want to talk about today? What other topics do you guys got to throw out there? I'm going to go into the mailbag a little bit. Any other news? Let's look at the news around the league a little bit. I just jumped into that real quickly. Interesting. The Big 12 boasts $426 million in revenue. That's a 25% increase over last year. That's they're going to distribute a record $426 million revenue to its 10 schools for the 21-22 season, which is nearly a 25% increase over the previous year and 10% higher than its peak before the pandemic. So that's a pretty good chunk of change, and they expect to hire a new commissioner mid-July, I believe. Notre Dame, of course we need to do this, right? And I'm sorry. I'll offend some people, and I'm really sorry to do this. Let me get to Notre Dame feels the need to change their fight song. It will change its lyrics to recognize the daughters of Notre Dame. The song, which will become synonymous with the Fighting Irish football, which has become synonymous, included a line, "While her royal sons are marching onward to victory." The line will now read, "While her loyal sons and daughters march on to victory." Look at, and I know I'm going to tick some people off, and I'm really sorry, but why do we, were that many women offended by the song that this becomes a noteworthy, not even this is newsworthy, but jeepers creepers, why do we have to change the song? And how long is it going to be that we can say sons and daughters? Not to get political on this show. We don't like to do that. But unfortunately, life is all politics, it seems. Probably a year from now, we'll have to take sons and daughters right out of it because that will offend people. Yikes, right? Interesting story out of Arkansas with Arkansas football coach Sam Pittman, who's done a great job, I think, getting this football team back on the map, the college football map. gets himself an extension through 2026. He's done a great job, as I said, and he's 60 years old. This is his first head coaching job. And he'll now get himself $6 million annually. So good job. And Sam Pittman is a lifer and deserves this. Who outside the normal contention has a chance to make the playoff? Good question. Good question. Let's take a look at some of the, and you can throw some names out there if you want. But Kenny's not. Kenny's, I would give this to Kenny. And Kenny does, and I always tell him I don't want to talk politics with him and I didn't on the golf course. Because Kenny does have his leanings, and I don't think we lean the same way. But Kenny can also fool you and be, I think Kenny's an equal opportunity basher when it comes to politics. I don't think he necessarily rides one side of the aisle 100% of the time. So anyway, outside of so who are we considering the normal contention people? All right, so I'll give you one team off the top of my head. Utah's going to have a chance. Utah will have a chance. They're going to start out high enough because they're going to start in the top 10. They may start in the top 4 or 5. And that will set them up if they have a good run to be in position to make the playoff. So there's one team for you. I'll give you the heart pick. I'll say Miami Hurricanes will have a chance out of the ACC. You can go ahead and bash me. But I do think that could happen. Out of the Big 12, watch out for Oklahoma State. I don't think they fall into your normal contenders. Watch out for Baylor. Out of the Big 10, if I had to take somebody outside of the norm, I think Michigan State's going to fall backwards. So I'm not going to say they got a chance. I'm not going to take anybody out of the Big 10 out of the norm. Let's see what you got. Wisconsin, Big 10. I'm not going to buy into that one. I don't think anybody in the Big 10 outside of Ohio State's really going to have a chance. Maybe Michigan if they can find a way to repeat last year's magic. I'll agree with Miami. I'll agree with Oklahoma State, as I already have. Utah. Ole Miss, as much as I like to profess my love for Lane Kiffin and push Carlos's buttons, I don't think they're going to have a chance. But we don't know. First thing, you got to get to the SEC championship game. Then you got to find a way to beat Alabama, right? Which side of that are they on? They're on that side, right? Nope, I'm sorry. They're in Alabama. That's the other problem. They got to win their division, which means beating Alabama, which I don't think anybody can do. Not with Bryce Young at quarterback. Bryce Young is too good. Alabama's got problems on their offensive line. There's questions about whether they've addressed it well enough. But they had problems last year. They were ranked really. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they were not a highly ranked offensive line as a unit. And look at the numbers Bryce Young put up winning the Heisman Trophy. What if they improve that even a little bit? He'll be unstoppable. See if I can come up with anybody else. I don't think I can. I think we covered it with your picks here. So let's see what else we got outside of the norms. Can Utah make noise in the Pac-12? Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think Utah will have a chance to make the playoff this year. They're going to be ranked high enough. As I said, they're not going to have to make up a lot of ground to get into the 4th position. I think the Pac-12 sets up really well for them. Let's look at their schedule, shall we? They're at Florida week 1. Big test for Utah. They get by this game, and I'm going to pick them to win this game. Florida's going to be better, but I think Utah comes in here and wins this game. They got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, guys. I mean, when you're looking at quarterbacks, right? People don't say Cam Rising is, one of the best quarterbacks in the country or a Heisman Trophy candidate. Watch out. He's a very efficient quarterback. And I think he's got a really good chance to lead this Utah team to some big wins. And I think they go into Florida and win this first game. Where'd I lost my schedule now? Where'd it go? I just had there it is. Okay. They're going to they'll win their second game because I don't even know who the school is. They'll beat San Diego State. That's 4-0 or 3-0. They're going to beat Arizona State, 4-0. Oregon State, easy, 5-0. Tough game at UCLA. I'm going to give it to them, 6-0. They got USC at home, 7-0. Washington State, 8-0. Arizona, 9-0. Stanford, 10-0. Oregon. Got to watch this Oregon team, but they can go to Oregon and win. They will run the table. They'll go to Colorado and win. They got two big stumbling blocks in my mind. In the Big Ten, in the Pac-12, yes, they got UCLA on the road. They got USC at home. And Oregon on the road. Potential stumbling blocks. Florida to open the season. I think Utah's got a very good chance of going undefeated. They win this opening game against Florida State. They're certainly going to win their next 3, 4, 5 games before they play USC. Before they play UCLA on the road. They got a really good chance to build up momentum and make their way into that position for the playoff, which is going to be early. But now they built momentum for those games in the Pac-12, the tough games in the Pac-12 against UCLA, USC, and Oregon, and I think they can do it. Will Washington win 6 games? Make me go through a lot of schedules here tonight. All right. Let's go through Washington's schedule. I don't know how many more schedules I can get through tonight, guys, but I'll try. I don't think they probably will. This team needs going to take a couple of years to rebound. They got Kent State. You're saying, let's see, you're saying in the league? In the Pac-12? No way. Overall, they might win. See, I think they lose. They'll beat Stanford at home. They lose to UCLA. That's 1-1. They lose at ASU. That's 1-2. They'll beat Arizona 2-2. They might beat Cal 3-2. They're going to beat Oregon State. That's 4-2. They lose to Oregon 5-2. Well, they got an outside shot to get 6 wins in the conference, I think. Might come down to that Washington State game on the road to see if they get to that 6-win mark. Houston and the American, if there's going to be a sleeper outside of the Power 5, Houston will probably be it, Alan. That'd be, and I don't think there will be a sleeper this year, not in the mode of Cincinnati. But they could be it. And I think you could see teams, have really good records like Coastal Carolina, like Texas San Antonio, could have really good records, maybe even undefeated, but they're not going to sniff, I don't think, the top 4. Maybe if they sign Kravernack as quarterback coach. Some have even said Texas. Yeah, I don't see it. You're going to maybe do another one, Alan. Time we got 8:18. We got time for this. That's fine. All right, let's go to see. Can we get 11 wins for Texas? I doubt I can get there. I'd like to see Steve Scarsazian do well at Texas, but they're going to win our opener. Win. They're playing Alabama at home. Lose. 1-1. They got Texas San Antonio, a very interesting game. I'll give them the victory, but Texas San Antonio's got a shot in this game. 2-1. Texas Tech on the road, 3-1. West Virginia, 4-1. At Oklahoma, that's a loss, 4-2. You like that, Alan? Iowa State, I think they lose, 4-3. At Oklahoma State, lose, 4-4. Beat Kansas State, 5-4. Beat TCU, 6-4. Although TCU will be tough with Sonny Dykes this year. What'd I say? 6-4. they're going to beat Kansas. This team could be 7-5 this year. 8-4, 8-4, 7-5. I don't see them anywhere near 11 wins. Look what Rising did against Ohio State last year in the Rose Bowl. A very good point. And Ohio State's defense wasn't all that good. I get it. We know the problems they had on defense, but Rising played really, really well in the Rose Bowl. And he played really, really well this whole second half of the season. And you want to watch a breakout star this year that you're going to hear a lot about, it's going to be Cam Rising. Outside possibility of being a Heisman finalist, I think. Utah blew out Oregon twice. They did, I think, back-to-back weeks, wasn't it? If I'm not mistaken, Alan, I feel like they back-to-back weeks they played them, and then they played them in the Pac-12 championship game. That's possible. Again, they got UCLA on the road, and they got a couple tough road games. Florida won't be an easy one on the road. I think they handled all their home games. I really do. So you're right. I think maybe the only two stumbling blocks they might have Oregon on the road too. But I do think they'll handle them. I think Florida and UCLA are the potential stumbling blocks for Utah. You know, it's funny. Mickey reached out to me about something. Actually, he had his Facebook hacked, but he reached out to me about the football pool, the NFL pool. I don't know where he's been. Maybe I ticked him off. I don't know. I'll have to mention him and ask him why we don't see him anymore. It's time for college football. Am I sure about Kansas? I just. Am I sure about Kansas? I am sure about Kansas. I don't think Kansas is that good. I think Kansas State will be a pretty good team. I do think Texas will beat Kansas State, though. But I think Kansas State's a sleeper. Again, Texas got a very tough schedule. Excuse me. All right, one more. We got a request for the Notre Dame one loss. Let's see. This will be interesting. Under first-year coach Marcus Freeman. I think I did this a couple weeks ago, I think. I will say I think they lose their opener to Ohio State. So that's 0-1. They're going to win against Marshall. Is that Marshall? God only knows. Some of these, the Thundering Herd in the second game. Listen, don't count Marshall out of this game, but I think they'll beat Marshall, but that could be a good game. 1-1. They got Cal at home, 2-1. They go to UNC, who they lost their quarterback. Unless their defense gets much, much better, and they get much more discipline, this team, under Mac Brown. I don't see UNC doing anything, so I'm going to give Carolina that win on the road, 3-1. BYU at home, not a gimme, but I'll give it to them, 4-1. Stanford, unless they make great improvements, they're going to lose. 5-1. UNLV stinks, 6-1. Syracuse at Syracuse, close one. Syracuse comes close to the upset, 7-1. Lose to Clemson, 7-2. Beat Navy, 8-2. Beat BC, 9-2. Lose to USC on the road, 9-3. That's not a bad first year for Marcus Freeman. You know, that's not going to give him a sniff of the playoff. And again, these predictions are what? We're in June. We're not going to play games yet for about 85 days. But that's an interesting it's an interesting schedule. I mean, if Notre Dame plays above projections, if Notre Dame can settle on a quarterback, and we're going to wrap it up here pretty soon. We can take one more topic maybe quickly. But if Notre Dame can settle on a quarterback, and it's a good quarterback, and they get good quarterback play, and the defense continues to play well, This team could go on a roll and do much better than what I just said. I don't see any way they can shock Ohio State. But the other games, even the ones I gave them losing at home to Clemson, on the road to USC, they could win. Could be an 11-win team. If things break right, I think they'll be 9-3. So who's my early Final Four projection? You got to make it tough on me. Alabama. That one's easy, right? Let's take a quick look here. Hold on. We got to wrap it up here. So this is going to be our last. You guys can put up your you guys can all put up your Final Fours if you want. And I'll give you mine right now. Alabama. Boy, it's not even what I wanted. What the hell's going on here? I'm looking for someplace I can find what I want. Definitely Alabama. Oklahoma State. Ohio State. And Utah will be your Final Four. So you got two teams really from the outside, Oklahoma State and the Utah Utes. Early. I could change that entirely by September, just an FYI. But I'll give you an early June prediction. Alabama, Ohio State, Oklahoma State, Utah will be your Final Four next year. I'll give you guys a chance before we wrap it up. Put them up. Here comes Alan. Georgia. You ought to be happy, Rick. I don't think the SEC gets two teams this year. Georgia, Ohio State, Miami. Thank you. I like you. Alan's kissing up to everybody tonight and himself. Oklahoma. Listen, if I wasn't going to be called a homer, I would have slid Miami in front of Oklahoma State. Just saying. Rick, you can put a pick up. You got one? Rick's got his. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma returns the favor to Allen. I don't think Georgia's going to make it this year. I think Georgia will have a good year. I think they're going to fall short of the playoff, though, unfortunately. And I think SEC gets one team this year, and it will be the Crimson Tide. But we'll talk more about it. Guys, great show tonight. Thanks for your participation. You really help these shows come along, especially here in the off season where we need stuff to talk about. Great job, guys. Thank you for your participation to Alan, Rick, Carlos. Early on, we had Frank and who I butchered his name, I'm sure. Apologize again for that, Frank. And Ron, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for contributing. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talks, College Football Huddle, right here on Northeast Streaming Sports. And please, guys, take a quick look at this this piece for the Dream Ride coming in August.
The Hometown Foundation is excited to bring back the Dream Ride experience, August 26th to the 28th at Connecticut's Farmington Polo Club. Join us in celebrating the accomplishments of our Dream Riders while enjoying live music, a car and motorcycle show, family fun zone, pet adoptions, canine demonstrations, the Fireman's Chili Cook-Off, and much, much more. Get your tickets today.